Hey friends, I'm Ryan with Arrows of Love. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about the general astrology of January 2021. We have finally moved on past 2020. Seems like a never-ending year with the pandemic and all the challenges that have come with that, reviewing personal relationships, reviewing work. There's no point in our lives that hasn't been touched by 2020, and it's meant to be that way, because really what we're going through in 2021 is kind of the afterbirth of what has occurred in 2020. It's where do we go from here? We can see glimpses of what this new future looks like. It's very much an Aquarian type of energy. And the two massive planets of our solar system, Jupiter and Saturn, just moved into Aquarius. So we're starting to think about, what does this new reality look like? How do we make it come to fruition? But how do we even get there, given the current political, personal, financial circumstances that we find ourselves in? January 2021 is one of tension. It is one that we're going to have to find outlets for excessive energy. The headline for 2021 is a square between Saturn and Uranus. Saturn's going to be in Aquarius for the next 2 years until January of 2023 or December of 2023. And then Uranus is going to be over in Taurus until 2026. It's got more of an extended stay over there. But these two co-rule Aquarius, and they could not be any different type of energy. Saturn is the taskmaster. Saturn is delay and restriction. It creates hard lessons. It's slow moving. It rules government. It rules the economy. Uranus, on the other hand, is more about, it's a little bit rebellious. It works through shock and awe. It's about the new future. It's about innovative thinking and science. The two could not be any different. So all of 2021 is going to be one step forward, 2 steps back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Just know that it's a push and pull type energy all throughout 2021. And we're going to see this play out in January of 2021 because it's going to give us a glimpse of what it's going to be like the entire year. Messenger planet Mercury starts us off. We get to see a glimpse of what this is going to look like 2021 on January 8th and January 12th. Mercury is going to form a challenging 90-degree aspect that's called a square over to Mars at 0 degrees of Taurus. Mercury sitting at 0 degrees of Aquarius. The Mercury-Mars square creates a lot of aggressive energy. There could be arguments, flare-ups. It's the nature of a Mars-Mercury square. Now, Mars is sitting in Taurus, tends to be a little bit more cautious, doesn't move quite as fast. It's a Venus-ruled sign, but Mars doesn't do quite as well in Venus. Mars is a go-getter. It's the pioneer. It wants to move forward. It's fast-moving. But in Taurus, it has to slow down. It's a little bit more stubborn, needs to take its time to make decisions. Mercury, on the other hand, sitting in another air sign, very talkative. That's Aquarius. So tension might rise on the 8th, and this is where it starts. Mercury keeps moving forward past the square to Mars, and now on January 12th, Mercury is going to form a square over to Uranus. This can be great for good ideas, brilliant ideas, in fact. Mercury is the lesser octave of Uranus. This is intellect. This is about the new future. This is thinking outside of the box. So here you can see great ideas forming, but again, there can be a lot of restlessness happening. So whatever was happening on January 8th might spill over into January 12th with some restlessness. Again, make sure you're getting enough exercise. Mars is the warrior planet. It needs to release the energy through physical activity. So be sure you're doing this, especially on the 8th. And then if you're feeling mentally restless, I would say try and do some yoga, get outside if you can around the 12th, because this is a lot of restless mental energy. Mars is really the showstopper for the rest of January. It's going to form a series of squares over to Saturn and Jupiter, and then Uranus gets in the mix. Mars and Uranus are sitting very close to each other in Taurus during January of 2020, and eventually the two are going to conjoin in the middle of the month, and we'll get more to that. But realize Mars, Uranus, it's very much a get up and go, I want this now, but Saturn is going to put the brakes on things. So it's basically saying not quite yet. Uranus is going to set us up for a series of squares. Jupiter and Saturn are moving through Aquarius. They're starting to pick up speed. Uranus is at the very beginning degrees, about 6 degrees of Uranus. So if you have, or 6 degrees of Taurus. So you have any planets sitting at that 6 degrees, any personal planets, Sun, your ascendant, Moon, Venus, Mars, Mercury, you're going to be impacted by this. So take a look at your natal chart. 6 degrees of any sign, you're going to be activated with these squares. Mars first squares Saturn on January 13th, and we've actually seen the square before. Mars was squaring Saturn when it was sitting in Aries back in August and September. So it's kind of like a repeat almost of what was happening back in late August, September, but it's got a different flavor this time because back in August, September, Mars was in Aries, Saturn was in Capricorn. Now they've moved forward. Now Mars is sitting in Taurus and Saturn is sitting in Aquarius. So it's almost like a repeat. The good news with this is we're only going to see this square once, but it's very much fearless. It's a fearless get up and go with Mars, and then it's cautious, let's not so fast Saturn. So again, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It creates a lot of tension right around that January 13th mark. That same day, though, Venus is making a harmonious trining aspect over to Uranus. Venus rules Taurus. This is a money house. This is a financial house. This is also a feel-good house. It's very sensual. Taurus is about all of the good feels. It wants financial security. But Taurus in there can bring some unusual things. It's things that foreign people in foreign land. It's unusual love, unusual attraction. So there could be an amorphous love that blossoms up during this time, or something unusual that might pique your passion around that January 13th time frame. But keep in mind, Mars, Saturn, this is big stuff. It can produce a lot of tension, and it can produce power dynamics, power struggles, especially in wherever houses that's hitting for you personally, Taurus and Aquarius. As we start progressing through to the middle of the month, now Jupiter's moving forward at 6 degrees of Aquarius, and now it's going to square Uranus. So again, we're going to see this kind of push and pull. Where do we go? The thing is with the Jupiter-Uranus square, it's a little bit more benefic. These are outer planets. This is a time when we could see some new music come up. We could see some new innovation come up. It's kind of the good feel of a square before Saturn comes in and starts squaring Uranus. January 20th rolls around. Now Mars, after it's been done with the square to Saturn, it's making some, just squared Mercury earlier in the month. Now Mars is going to conjoin with Uranus. This is explosive energy. Mars is the god of war. It's energy in its purest form. Uranus is very much about the shock and awe factor. So when the two meet up, we can see some pretty big events come through. So this is January 20th. Now the two are conjoined in Taurus. There could be something on the financial markets. We could possibly see a COVID relief bill this day, but it could be something a little bit shocking and surprising, because on the 23rd of January, which is also Inauguration Day in the United States, Mars is going to be squaring Jupiter, and the Sun is now going to be conjoined with Saturn. So you basically have Mars Mars and Uranus, which are conjoined in Taurus at about 6 degrees. And now we have the Sun conjoined with Saturn and very close to Jupiter all at the same time. That is a lot of energy in the air. This can produce some rebellion. We could see some tension on the global and national front. This also produces premature action, not thinking before you leap. The Sun-Saturn conjunction, in ancient astrology, these are mortal enemies. It's very much new guard versus old guard. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some significant events happening around Inauguration Day with protests and alike. It's very much, where do we go from here? Are we going into the new reality, and how much of the status quo do we keep? And we're going to see this energy play out all of 2021. So the 23rd is a big day. The 20th is a big day. Again, this is stuff that changes the collective. So we're going to start seeing this theme of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, status quo versus new future all of 2021. And this is the start of it, essentially. Later in the month, the Sun is going to also square Uranus. Again, this is what I'm talking about. All of those planets moving through Aquarius are going to sit there and square all of those planets sitting in Taurus. So it's just a repeat of what we were seeing again on the 20th and on the 17th with that Jupiter-Mars square Uranus. This time it's the Sun. So there could be a lot of tension in the air, mental energy. Where do we go next? Again, it could be a little bit of explosive energy, shock and awe factor. There is some good news, though. Venus is making some really nice angles and trines. So Venus is going to make a nice trine over to Mars in early January. So that's great. That's on the 8th. That's great for romance, especially with Mars being in the Venus sign. And Venus is now out of its own detriment. It does pretty well in Capricorn overall. So this could be a great day for romance on January 8th. And then Venus is going to travel along. She's moving pretty fast. She's in Capricorn most of January. And then on January 28th, Venus is going to make a conjunction with Pluto. This is passionate energy. Great passion, great attraction, great emotional depth too. Pluto is all about power. It's magnetism. It's things from the underworld. Venus is all about love. So there could be some great attraction happening this day. This is also a day when things come back from the past too, because Pluto rules the underworld. It's things unseen. So just be aware that, you might hear from an ex this day, or things from the past can come creeping back up in the love department. But overall, Venus, Pluto, great for passion. A lot happening in January, and then right in February, we're going to get into some bigger stuff too. Again, now the Sun is going to square Mars as they're moving forward. So the Sun's sitting at 12 degrees of Aquarius. Mars is sitting over at 12 degrees of Taurus. So again, this is friction. This is a lot of battles back and forth. This could produce arguments. It's kind of like the Mercury-Mars aspect where, it's aggressive energy. So be aware of it. It can produce a lot of tension, the wanting to get forward, move forward. That's what we want to do here, but we just can't just quite yet. Mars has to clear a lot of the planets that are sitting over in Aquarius, which means we got to get through the next 6 weeks to 8 weeks until Mars is now in Gemini. So we got to get through the squares, and then the big headliner essentially, for all of 2020 and 2021 is going to be the Saturn-Uranus square. The two heavy hitter planets, they both co-rule Aquarius. It's the new future, it's technology, it's innovation. Which way are we going? And it really does produce kind of like this transitionary year where we got to deal with the afterbirth of 2020. So I did a little bit of research. Saturn and Jupiter are going to meet up in a square 3 times throughout all of 2021. The first one is going to be on February 17th. So everything that we see leading up to February 17th with these squares to Mars, the squares to Uranus. It's all setting us up for what's going to come with the Saturn-Uranus square on February 17th. The last time these two were in a 90-degree square was back in July of 1999. So we always take a look at what was happening during that time because it's telling for astrologers what we can expect. The interesting thing about this is that Saturn was sitting in Taurus and Uranus was sitting in Aquarius. So they're exactly opposite of where they are now. So Uranus is sitting in Taurus as of today. Saturn is sitting over in Aquarius. So here it's kind of like a reversal role. You have a co-ruler sitting in its home sign, and then the other one, sitting in Taurus. So what we're going to see is that these two planets are going to make this squaring aspect 3 times over the year. February 17th is the first square. June 14th is the second time they made up because of retrograde motions, and then December of 2021 is the last time they meet up. So you'll see this basically 3 times throughout. It's a theme of 3, essentially. The challenge presents itself on February 17th. This is where we see what is it that we have to deal with in 2021. June 14th rolls around. Now is a time for review. Where can we make corrections as to when this starts moving forward again? So this is the review period in June. And then by December of 2021, this is when we finally have a chance to make things right and go for what it is that we need to do for the new future. What does this look like? This is where we start seeing culminations come through. So it's a 3 aspect period. You'll see this theme play out 3 times throughout all of 2021, and it starts in February. But we're going to start seeing glimpses in all of January because of all these personal planets moving with Mars and Uranus. So it's very much a let's get this going now, speed up, halt. Now we need to start dealing with some big stuff with the Saturn-Uranus square. The last time these two met up was in July of 1999, and they met up 3 times. So it's July 1999, November 1999, and then May of 2000. So I did a little bit of research what was going on during this time. July of 1999, to give you some idea of what the power dynamics are going to look like, the new future, Uranus, the status quo of Saturn, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. You're going to see a lot of power dynamics play out, a lot about new transition of power. And here's a little bit of taste of this. And this can also produce rebellion. Uranus is about rebellion. It creates rebellion to bring in the new future, to bring issues to light that need to change. So just keep this in mind. It's going to sound a little damp, and perhaps even a little bit, not end of world time, but it's tough stuff that we got to get through. So July of 1999, July 18th of 1999 is when Saturn squared Uranus exactly. During that month of 1999, 19 new members were appointed to the executive commission within the EU, and it was called an era of new change for the EU after the resignation of the entire previous commission. So you can see huge transition of power, bringing in a new era. That's what Aquarius is all about, the new age. What does this look like for us now that we've come to grips with what COVID has done to the world? Israel and Palestine had a summit during 1999, so they were trying to work out some of their issues. We see that theme play out in 2020. We could probably see something very similar again, but the two heads of state were talking to each other, trying to figure out what to do with the West Bank. There were huge protests in Iran with students for pro-democracy at that time. So this is all happening in Tehran, Iran. Again, you're going to see protests, you're going to see rebellion, you're going to see groups come out for freedom and liberation. That is ultimately what Uranus is all about, is to free yourself from the chains that bind you to bring in this new future. So we saw Iranian protests during that time. The Taiwanese were challenging the one China policy during this time. So again, challenging that status quo. What does this look like? more rebellion. During this time, it was the Kosovo War. Serbs were blamed for about 10,000 Kosovo deaths. There was a 3-month push to drive out the Albanians from Kosovo. And this was, the Kosovo Liberation Army. Again, another keyword, liberation. So it's this bubbling up, wanting things to change for something better. Technology is also a huge push of Uranus, and during July of 1999, California scientists had developed tiny computer components the size of a molecule, which helped bring about the decade, the 2000 boom. So that was happening during July 15th. So that was just a few days before the exact square between Saturn and Uranus. So we can see huge technology pushes during this time too. There's also a lot of aggression in the air, and that's why I brought up these challenges in these squares with Mars. It's a lot of aggression, it's a lot of pent-up energy, and this can oftentimes come out in very destructive ways. So back in 1999, this was July 2nd through the 5th, a white supremacist went on a shooting spree. It was 7 different drive-bys and killed several people in the Midwest. So there was, again, racial tension and things that we see now with the George Floyd killing back in 2020 of the summer. There's also a lone gunman that killed 9, went into a workplace, 2 trading brokerage firms, and was starting to shoot up people. So you can see how this can kind of play out. You see these mass shootings, you see racial tension, you see people losing their marbles, so to speak. And that happened on July 29th. So this was all around that time of that square. So you can see where these things might go. It's a tense time. Then on July 16th, John F. Kennedy Jr. went down in that plane crash. So these, again, are all themes that you can see play out. It's transition of power. It's rebellion. It's aggressive, tense energy, and you're going to see this play out all of 2021. So what can you do? It's really important for all of us that if we're feeling the intensity, if you're feeling that urge to lash out, that we direct it in positive ways. So be sure you're getting plenty of exercise. If you can, I realize the winter months are difficult. Time to bundle up and get outside, breathe that fresh air. Make sure you're doing some type of meditation and taking care of your mind, because this is where mental tension brews up too. Cabin fever sets in. People do crazy things when they're stuck in their house for months on end, right? So we can see where a lot of this tension could be brewing up, but if you ground the energy, if we focus it on things that can be productive, that's where we see results. I hope you found this video helpful. We are going to do the 12 signs. I'll dive more into this, but as a general matter, it's important for all of us to know what January 2021 looks like. A lot of us are hopeful for 2021, and I think there's a lot of things to be hopeful for, but the reality of the situation is that we have to take care of the afterbirth of 2020. And what does this all mean for us? How are we going to clean this up? And whenever you have this transition, this big transition of Jupiter and Saturn moving into Aquarius at the same time, this marks the end of an era and the beginning of an era. There's always a transition period that can be quite troublesome, and you can see a lot of different things brew up. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some natural disasters happening. I would not be surprised if we had a lot of rebellion, a lot happening in the news. These themes that we talked about, transition of power. We're going to see conflicts probably throughout the world, and some aggressive activity that's just bizarre. We saw this happen right over Christmas, right? We had that bizarre van blow up in Nashville. And what's interesting about that is that happened right after Mars was squaring Pluto. So it's things kind of just like coming up from the underworld that you don't really understand, and it produces some really bizarre energy. So we're going to see a lot of this stuff play out in the news. If you have any planets sitting at 4 degrees to 6 degrees of Aquarius and Taurus, this is going to play out significantly for you in particular. But if you have any planets or points sitting at that 4 to 6 degrees in other signs, you'll be triggered in other ways too. So if you found this video helpful, please subscribe, press that like button. If you're interested in getting a personal reading and what 2020 is going to be like, feel free to drop me an email. My email is in the description box below. I wish you all the best for 2021. Be sure you keep grounded. Be sure to get plenty of physical exercise. And be sure you're exercising the mind to make sure you're not being too restless during cabin fever and winter and everything else. And COVID's still playing out. We got a lot on our plate. It's time to deal with the afterbirth of 2020. I wish you all well. Until next time, take care.